today's Path Beyond is going to be about a story that was very impactful for me at the time and would change and be very impactful for me throughout my whole life. I didn't have to do dry cleaning very much because of where I worked, but if I had something that I needed to do in Tokyo, or something very formal where I needed to have a starched shirt or have my suit pressed, I occasionally would go to a dry cleaner. And there was one not too far from me that I typically went to, but for some reason that day I went to a different one, closer to the train station in town. And there was a lady in front of me dropping off her clothing, and the guy said to her, "Hey, no, pay when you pick up," because she was going to pay him at that moment. I said, no problem. Just pay when you pick up, no big deal. So in my mind, I was thinking, okay, cool, that's what I'll do. I was prepping all my vocabulary because I didn't go to the dry cleaners that much, so I didn't really understand the nature of what they would ask, how they would ask, what I needed to say when I would come to pick it up. And we scheduled everything, I dropped my stuff off, and I turned to leave, and he said, "Wait a second, you gotta pay." I said, "Oh, I have to pay?" I was embarrassed and I was confused. I said, "Oh, but she didn't have to pay." And I paused, and he said, "No, but you have to pay now." And I thought, oh man, this sucks, because I thought, one, I'd misunderstood, so I felt kind of silly, and then two, I was like, man, I'm tired of people treating me differently because I'm a foreigner, because I'm white. It would become exhausting on certain days, if you'd have a long week or a long day, just the little things would just add up, and it would just wear me out. So I said, okay, yeah, of course, I'll pay you. And I was irritated by that for a long time, because I had viewed that experience through the lens of the other experiences that I had lived through that were clearly about my skin color and my ethnicity. What people did and how they acted around me, periodically there in those small areas, it just got exhausting. And I went to pick up my clothing, and it was fine. I had my ticket, later that week, picked up my clothing and whatnot, and I was still a little bit frustrated, but I got it. He was an older gentleman. Maybe he didn't like foreigners, whatever. And I did some soul searching, like, okay, I can't let that bother me just because this guy is this way. I'm not going to change him. I'll just be nice. I'll just put my best foot forward. And over the years, I would think about that scenario with a bit of a bad taste in my mouth, to be honest. And then at some point it hit me that, this was years later, maybe a decade later, it hit me. What if that guy wasn't being racist towards me? Like, what if? What would this scenario be if he wasn't? And I started thinking about it, and I thought, well, hey, wait a second. Maybe the lady that was in front of me in line that day, what if she was somebody that he knew? It was a small town. What if he knew her parents? What if he grew up with her parents? What if he had known her since she was a little girl, and now she was a mother and a wife, and he knew that she was going to pay, so she didn't need to pay when she dropped off. So maybe he was just giving her a special treatment because she was a known entity, whereas I was a stranger. I'd never been to his shop before. He didn't know who I was. So maybe that was the normal policy, that you just pay when you drop off, and she got a pass because maybe she was a friend of the family. I don't know. I'll never know, obviously. And I thought, you know what, like, just because I'd had some bad experiences in town didn't mean that this guy was bad, necessarily. On the surface, it definitely appeared that he was being racist, but maybe he wasn't. Maybe that's the way I was perceiving him based on my experiences. I don't know, but it was an interesting path for me to go down years later, to almost have a revisionist history of my time, that small time capsule there with that guy at his shop, that maybe if I had seen that situation from a different lens, I would have totally had a different impression of that guy and had a a better taste in my mouth. And it would be one less example of how people didn't trust white people, or people thought that there were negative connotations associated with white people living in their small town. So luckily I took that path beyond within myself to think, you know what, just because something weird happens doesn't mean that it's malicious. It doesn't mean that it's bad. I couldn't stereotype that guy just because he was an old local guy and I was some young foreign guy. I couldn't force the two of us into that scenario because I didn't know it to be true. It could have been true, but I didn't know it to be true, if I'm honest with myself looking back on it. So that was an interesting experience for me, and it's something that I've been thinking about over the years, that, you know, there's always more to a story than I realize when I look at something happening. There's always something more that could potentially be happening behind the scenes that I'm not aware of, that might change how I act in that situation or perceive that situation. That's this episode of Paths Beyond. Thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you on the next one.